Hi, welcome back to Cheyenne, Wyoming Urban Gardener. This is Debbie, and you don't normally see me in the videos, but this time my daughter's actually behind the camera and she is filming. Say hi.
Hi.
She doesn't normally get on the videos either. But anyway, welcome back, and right now I've just picked up some stakes and we're going to do a little bit more planting and some little bit of things in the garden. I just picked up some more pots from Menards. We got some larger pots here so we can transplant some of our sucker rooted tomatoes into these pots. It'll be the Sun Sugar Gold tomatoes as well as the yellow pear tomatoes, and then we're going to get some pickling cucumbers also started. We've got 6 pots, so we're going to do 3 tomatoes and then 3 are going to be the pickling cucumbers. So we're going to layer in some of our compost, which we have over here. And then we're going to put in some soil, a little bit, and then a layer of the Job's Organic Slow Release plant food, which lasts about 3 months. And then the rest will be soil after that, and then we'll be planting our tomatoes. And here I have the tomato in my hands. This is one of the yellow pear tomatoes. This one has only been in the soil in a smaller pot for about 4 or 5 days. And you can see already the amount of roots that it has on it. And this was again a sucker that I had taken off of another yellow pear tomato plant that I had, and just went ahead and rooted it inside in a clear glass, actually a clear glass like bottle filled with water, and I just went ahead and rooted it for about a week and then brought it out, planted it in some soil in a smaller pot with a little, just it didn't even have any fertilizer, just soil. And now we're getting ready to transplant it into the larger pot, and I do have all of my layers mixed in together, and we'll just sit it right back down in there. And this is the second yellow pear tomato, and as you can see, it has a much larger pot now. And then what we will do is just go back and then backfill all the way up to about a ½ an inch up on the stem that is exposed. So there we have it. We went ahead and got a couple of pots ready. I'm going to save 2 of them, but I'm going to put some pickling cucumbers in these, probably 3, so that way there'll be enough in there. And then we're going to get some of the bamboo stakes that I was holding in the beginning. We're going to get those all assembled up for these pots and for the tomatoes. Tomatoes are now sitting just here and there, and I went ahead and kept this one in the small pot because this is the one that I just had put in the pot. This is the Sun Sugar Gold, so I'm going to let it get a little bit more established before I put it into a larger pot, or I may just leave it in that one because I have a couple of them in that size pot and they are doing just fine. I'll show you those in just a moment. But anyway, there's the stakes. I'm going to get those up and going, and there are the yellow pear tomatoes that we went ahead and transplanted. They're in a little bit smaller pot than what we have for our larger yellow pear tomato that those suckers came off of, but they will still be fine. That's actually a pot that's really too large. I can use a square foot one, which is right here. Well, they're about the same size, honestly, but smaller ones will do just fine. I have some in some smaller ones. I'll show you those real quickly. Oh goodness, where did I put them? I moved them around a little bit. Anyway, there they are. These are a little bit smaller square containers, and they're doing just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in those small containers, or large containers to be honest. It's about the largest that I could find at a reasonable price today. So I went ahead and got those in, and we'll get those set up with a bamboo stake. And I did just trim these of the lower foliage earlier today. These were really bushy. I trimmed those out. I'm saving those suckers as well. Going to get those rooted. And we're just going to keep going as long as I can go, because these types of small cherry tomatoes produce pretty quickly. It was only a few weeks once I got them into the larger pots that they started blooming and producing. Let me show you that they do have tomatoes on them, and they're hanging all around in different areas. And this one is blooming. This is the one that was broken and now has 2 main stems, which we just went ahead and staked today. And there you can see some more tomatoes and more blooms that are sitting on these. Anyway, we'll get those all nice and established, and get them growing and staked up, and they will do fantastic. And I just wanted to show you my hibiscus that is blooming right now. The blooms are absolutely fantastic. Full of blooms right now. I actually pulled off some that had already died back because we've been saving those for hibiscus tea and also for hibiscus sugar. And you can even make cakes and all kinds of things with these. But just beautiful, beautiful blooms, and you can see more coming on. And I do notice a lot of leaves that will yellow, and I'll show you some that have fallen off. You can see the little yellow leaves there. I just keep them pulled off of there, and they keep putting out new growth. And then of course we're going to go ahead and get these transplanted into larger pots later in the season when they start putting those size pots on clearance. And we'll get those transplanted and then have a pot liner around them, and we'll take them in for the winter. But they're just doing amazing, and I like looking at them when I'm out here working on transplanting things and making pots for other stuff. But we've had a massive amount of growth in the last couple of days on all of these plants, and I moved this one out. This is the lemon tree with the cucumbers at the base, and then a few more things. I'm not even sure what I planted in there, but I think they might be forget-me-nots or something. But anyway, move that on out a little bit so it gets more of the morning sun, so those catch up a little bit quicker because they're a little slow, and it's just because they've been kind of shaded. Got a massive amount of growth on the pot with all of the white Crenshaws and white spine cucumbers and Sharon Tay cantaloupe. They have just put on an amazing amount of growth in the last couple of days, especially just yesterday and today, specifically last night and today. Just getting massive, and I've even noticed a couple of little tiny blooms on them. And I do notice that we have some watermelons that are popping up on our vines. So that is exciting. Let me see if I can find them again. I found them a little bit earlier today. And it hasn't been quite as warm today. It's only been 77. This is July 6th. So we haven't been quite as warm today, but we've still been humid because we had a lot of rain today. Not really a torrential downpour or anything, but there we go. There's a little watermelon right in there. You can see that. So this one has about 3 or 4 on it, and this is actually 3 plants together. So that's why it has 3 or 4. Each plant has 1 or 2 on them. So we've got watermelons establishing themselves right now, and this is I believe this is the Crimson Sweet. Yes. So that is the Crimson Sweet watermelons. We did also get a shipment of seeds in, something that I had been trying earlier in the season for. I'm going to step into the shade a little bit because I've been out in the sun enough. So we got a shipment of some watermelon seeds yesterday that came in. Thank you for the person that sent those out. And they are blacktail watermelons. And what it is that they are a very early maturing variety of watermelon that can stand cold temperatures a little bit better than some of the other watermelon varieties. In fact, it even touts for them to be planted in any season. So we have planted a few seeds here and there of those blacktail watermelons. So I'll look forward to seeing those come up. And I think that the mature date on them was like 55 to 60 days. So we should have enough time left for that to happen. So they should be up in the next couple of days, and we'll see. We'll see if anything happens. I, of course, only put in a few seeds because I was afraid that they may not mature. So I've kept the rest of the seeds for next season. But anyway, a large amount of growth on everything. Cucumbers just going crazy. And I went in here and tied up a lot of the cucumbers and watermelons today. You can see that I have some little twine here and there all throughout, except for the ones that are not quite that big yet. These are the later ones that I planted, like the straight 8 cucumbers. But just a massive amount of growth on everything. All of it's looking healthy and beautiful. And I still am having problems with that Schultz potting soil that we used. That is what the straight 8 cucumbers are planted in, and as you can see, they're a little bit smaller. and a little bit slower than some of the other cucumbers that I've had that I had the Master Garden soil for. So that saddens me. I hope that they get done in time, because the straight 8 cucumbers can take a little bit longer than some of the other cucumber varieties. I do have the spring burpless cucumbers here, which is not really spring. That doesn't matter, they'll still produce. So those, I've got those planted, and they should be a nice long burpless type of cucumber, but they're not really a pickling variety of cucumber. So you can do pickles out of them, but they only last a few days in the fridge, so it's better to make pickles and things out of pickling types of cucumbers, such as straight 8s, because they're a dual purpose, or white spine cucumbers, or just a national pickler or something like that. And we have all of those planted. They're just a little bit slower. We've got them all throughout the garden, as well as being in containers. And I think that this one here is one of our pickling varieties as well. But I did just go ahead and plant a couple more seeds for some pickling cucumbers specifically. And those are a 50-day maturing variety, so they'll be up in the next week, and then they will have plenty of time to put on loads of cucumbers before September. So we'll look forward to those. All of the watermelons, these are the doll baby watermelons that are planted in here, as well as the Klondike. They are just growing massively. They're catching up very quickly to the rest of the watermelons out here. Have even started putting runners on, so look forward to those. Our rosemary is up that we planted. Our basil is doing amazing in here. We also planted our cinnamon basil and lemon basil out here in the kiddie pool as well. And we've gotten some strawberries and more setting on from the mountain strawberries. I'm really surprised. I thought the mountain strawberries would only produce through June, but they have continued to produce like crazy. In fact, the seascape are putting on new growth and looking quite well. Thought I had lost one of them, but it looks like it is coming back out. So looking forward to more strawberries all throughout this area. We've continued to pull off of the north strawberry bed as well in the kiddie pool conversion. And like I said, you can just see loads of strawberries coming on, specifically on a couple of plants. And then we did have a flower merged together, which made a triple-sized mountain strawberry right there. So it's going to be pretty big. Just loads of growth in here. I'm just so surprised this season, just with the addition of a little bit of some compost and freshening up these pots and containers with everything, and it's all looking great. And let me show you the herb garden as well, because we got out here and went ahead and fenced the herb garden, because I did have people that were walking by. If you notice here, we have a sidewalk. People were walking by with their dogs and letting the dogs just run through our herb garden patch, and they were digging things up. In fact, I have a hole that had popped up over here in the lettuce that I planted. This is the red marble lettuce through here, and there's a hole right there, and that's where a dog had came through and was digging in the lettuce bed. So don't appreciate that. So I just went ahead and fenced it. It's not a huge fence. A lot of dogs can jump it, but it deters them for some reason from not actually getting over into it. It's deterred mine anyway. And columbine looking beautiful, and these lilies are just surpassing themselves from last season. They only had 13 blooms last season, and I thought that was a lot of blooms, but this year they're just knocking it out of the park. Our cosmos is all coming up in here. I did remember what I planted in here. Our cosmos is up. I'm going to plant some more cosmos in here of different color varieties that I picked up today. And we've got some cucumbers planted in here as well. And I'm getting ready to cut the salvia completely off, even with the ground, because it starts doing like this. It flops over as it gets a little bit later in the season and kind of just shades out everything else, because there's a cucumber underneath this plant, and I want to go ahead and get that up. And then we've got some sunflowers all coming up in there. These are a short variety of sunflowers. Some of them only get to 4 to 5 feet, but the others only about 20 to 24 inches. Lavender, this is the best this lavender has ever looked, and I did amend the soil a little bit in this bed earlier in the season, so I think that might have helped that along. Our birdhouse gourds are putting on their extra leaves, and they're a little bit slower, but they like the south more, so I'm not real sure we'll get anything from those, but they're trying, so that's what's important. Zinnias looking amazing, and we've got a cucumber tucked in there as well. A couple of cucumbers tucked in here, and you can see I put a little trellis in there because we've got a couple of cucumbers right underneath that trellis, and I ran out of trellises except for the short flimsy green ones, which I won't use. I'll just let them sprawl all throughout here underneath the zinnias, because the zinnias will be taller, and they shouldn't really bother too much of anything. Or I may get in here with something that I have found thanks to another channel called a ladder mesh block, and it's just basically some items that are used for like concrete, to reinforce concrete blocks and things like that to create arches. And I may get in here with those. They're a very thin little strip, about 6 inches wide and then about 8 feet long, and you can use those as trellises as well, so I may get in there with those. I noticed that they're at Menards for only a couple of dollars, so I'll pick up like 5 or 6 of those and get those in here, and that'll be for the cucumbers, so that way it'll keep them up off the ground and allow everything else in here to be what they're supposed to be. The chamomile, my daughter keeps pulling all of the flowers off and saving those for tea, and they just keep producing every single day. She comes out here and harvests all these little blooms off, and still has loads more by the next day. And you can see more chamomile through here that is coming on. And the lemon balm, just beautiful. This lemon balm is the prettiest it's ever looked, and it looked really bad earlier in the season because it got frostbitten a little bit, but it has just came out and it's just beautiful. The lettuce through here is beautiful as well. Again, this is a Four Seasons Marvel lettuce, and it's kind of a rusty red color. And all of our radishes are doing amazing as well. We'll probably get some started heading up pretty soon. So we've got quite a bit of radishes in here. And our dill, we planted some dill over here when we filled in some more seeds, and those are all up. So dill is looking great in here. And again, we have some morning glories that we kind of secluded off in this section, and those are all up. You can see those are right there and right there, and we've got this big trellis here for them to climb up. It's about 6 feet tall. And then of course you can see some of my little notices there to let me know what kind of sunflowers we planted. We planted the evening sun mixed colors, and then a couple of different sunflowers that I didn't label, and then the early sensation cosmos are in here. So lots of beautiful flowers will be up and blooming very soon, but that is the herb garden. And you can see a good shot of all of our containers through here. Like I said, this was the tame before the wild, and it's beginning to get wild. Had to do a lot of tying up today, a lot more so than when I first started tying them up. I did pick up a couple of roses on clearance at Menards, $5 each. They are knockout roses, and I'm going to put those on the north side, and hopefully, crossing fingers, they will make it. They don't normally like that kind of thing, but hopefully they will. So all of our containers through here are all looking beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Nice and full and lush. All of the stuff going on in here. Garden looking amazing still. And some of our corn in the back that's shaded is really beginning to put on some size now. We've only had a few that didn't come up, or actually it looks like they may be coming up now, so they waited a long time before they started coming up. But that's all filling out back in here. And I apologize if I sound breathy. I had a nice meal for lunch, and I'm kind of tired. I've worked in the garden a lot, and just a lot of things going on, and I'm watching my step granddaughter as well. So lots of stuff going on in here. Just looking amazing. My grandson's little bed in here. We still haven't pulled the lettuce out yet, but I'm going to pull that out and get some more seeds planted because it has gotten bitter. And all of his little flowers and all that stuff coming up. Hear my dogs barking because they don't remember who I am standing outside. I keep the windows open. Let me show you. Like right here. And sometimes my dogs will come up. Elvira, come here, Elvira. And you can see her. She'll peek right here at the edge. So that's Elvira. Hi, Elvira. Unfortunately, Wesley, which is the shortest one, cannot reach the windowsill. He's very tiny. Basil doing amazing. Our Guido-Cossaman squash has came up. I was mentioning that a couple days ago, or actually in the last video. And they are up now. And they're putting on a lot of growth really, really fast. So thank you again, Sandy from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming / Arizona. And I got to get in here with the Kellogg's breakfast tomatoes and trim out some of those leaves from the bottom again and get those tied up as well, because they have not been tied up as yet because they were not quite tall enough yet. Kennebec potatoes are still blooming, putting on blooms, all kinds of things. And they're about almost 3 feet tall now. If I come down into the section where it kind of dips down a little bit and they come up even with them, they actually hit right at my hip. So they're pretty tall. Not quite as tall as the Yukon Golds. I'll show you those in just a moment. They have been putting on more growth than I can account for. All of our beans are now putting runners on that I was mentioning. And this one is beginning to climb the trellis. You can see that there. And I did leave some of the vines from the last season attached to the trellis because it'll make it a little bit easier for them to climb up, because it can be kind of smooth on those wires, and I had to really fight with them last year to make them climb the trellis. They kept wanting to just kind of droop over the other way. So beans putting on a massive amount of growth. Like I said, with the warmer temperatures, we've had 80s and almost 90, and we're supposed to be, I think, 94 in a couple of days. Was saying 95, now it's saying 94. We'll have that in a couple of days, and they will definitely put on a huge amount of growth then, because the beans love the heat. So all kinds of stuff going on in there. I did trim off the tomatillo. There was a branch that was sticking out that was a sucker, and I did trim that off, and I've got that in water, so I'm going to go ahead and try to get that rooted as well, and we'll have another tomatillo plant. Our Armenian cucumbers did come up, and they're starting to put on their 3rd and 4th leaves now, so I look forward to seeing those. And we did plant a couple of more cucumbers in there, a different variety. I think I planted the White Wonder. The White Wonder, they'll be completely white cucumber, and they are pickling quality as well. I did plant that in there, a couple of different hills of those, just kind of mixed in with everything. Clematis still blooming like crazy. Our peas are blooming, and we should have peas pretty soon. And I did notice that the other peas, the last row that I had planted, is up a couple of inches now, so we'll start seeing that putting on runners pretty soon. Everything in here, just like I said, is getting wild, and we've got onions that are getting very large at this point. I got in here and did a little bit of weeding a little earlier. I still have a couple of calendula in there that I haven't pulled out, that I do need to go ahead and get pulled out, because they're going to suck some energy from the onions. All of our tomatoes are just looking fantastic. The growth on them is amazing, and I have not put tomato cages up, and I don't believe that I will. I think I'm just going to let them go wild this time, see how it goes. The couple of San Marzanos that were looking kind of bad, one of them still looks bad, but it is actually putting on new growth, and I'm going to go in there and put in some fertilizer as well, just to see if I can get them to pull out of whatever they've got going on. It's not blight. Kind of looked like a copper deficiency, but now that I think about it, there's probably a tree root in there, because there was a lot of tree roots in this garden when I was going through and making it, and they were large, so there's probably a tree root in there, and that produces a little bit too much acid that they don't like. And I did know that there is a tree root in an area that I cannot get it out, and it's probably just that it's so big, and it probably branches off into that section. So that's probably what is going on with those, but they look like they're beginning to pull out of whatever it is, so they've probably acclimated to that tree root acid, and I are going to put on some new growth. They'll just be a little bit later than the rest of them to catch up. The rest of the San Marzanos are looking amazing. They were a little slow to put growth on because they were pretty small when I got them, but they are really looking beautiful now. And then of course I've got the giant ox hearts, the super sauce tomatoes, and a whole bunch of others in here. And Bake a Leg and Let's Dig It is another one of the channels that I do follow. And she had mentioned that her beans had gotten hit by the Mexican, I think it's Mexican yellow beetle larvae. Those are the little fuzzy yellow guys that get on your beans. And I really hope that does not happen. I've seen it one time here, and they were actually little green guys, not yellow guys. And they burrowed into one of my bean pods and got into one of the beans. And I very quickly found that and very quickly got rid of the situation. But yeah, those guys can really decimate a bean crop very fast. So always be aware that you have a lot of pests out there that maybe you don't think about. The Mexican bean beetle is one of those, and it is a little yellow fuzzy guy that completely just eats the leaves until there's nothing left but skeletons. So bear that in mind. Make sure you check your beans all of the time, because I don't spray any of mine. And that is something that you want to be aware of. I don't really ever see any pests. Every once in a while I'll see a flecking on a leaf or something, but I don't see any pests in here. I go through very regularly and check those, and we don't really have, that I've seen, squash boring beetles here either, which bore into the vines of squash plants. I haven't seen those here. So thankfully I've not had to deal with that. And of course I moved my borage over here, by the way, because it was just getting too much sun where it was at. So I moved it over here next to my roses. It perked back up, but I do need to go in and trim some of the yellowing leaves off the bottom side. And so that way I don't have to actually transplant another one into here to take its place. And roses just blooming like crazy. The artichokes are really showing some growth. So I'm looking forward to seeing those, and hopefully they'll get up to the point of producing. And then we've got a lot of dandelions that have came up in here that I've got to get in and figure out how to get out without damaging some of my flowers, because I've got flowers planted in here everywhere as well. Comfrey looking great. Need to get that in a larger pot, and it'll actually need to be a pot that's larger than the ones that I just picked up. So I'm on the lookout for that. But here is the overall garden. I did plant some more beans along the fence here because we got those decimated by pests. This was not a situation of Mexican bean beetle. These are ants that are doing this, and they're looking for water. So what I have done with that is I've just kept an eye on it. It looks like that they have started to kind of leave my stuff alone at this point. So we've not had any more issues with the newer beans coming on. It's just been the ones in that first few section there that first came up that they kind of bothered. After that, you'll notice in this section that's came up a little bit later, they have not bothered as badly. There's been one that they did because that one came up pretty quickly, but the rest of them, they're all looking fine. And I did plant some more beans in here so that way that they can help the other ones along. And then of course we have some sunflowers. These are a shorter variety that are up as well. I did plant a couple of more sunflowers in there. Those will be up pretty soon. And then of course we have our delicata squash through here, and they're doing pretty well. And somehow this bean got outside of the row. So I don't know if I'll try to transplant that one or just leave it as it is, because the squash don't seem to be bothered by it. Anyway, that is that. And of course we've got a couple of plants up in every one of our hanging pots that we had hung up on the fence. Watercress doing beautifully. And this basil has just surprised me. It's a second season basil, and I'm leaving it to go to seed. It does have some seed pods on it, but it's also putting out a massive amount of growth of basil leaves, and we will harvest those along with the seeds. And of course the fuchsia doing amazing still, just bushing out now, and loads of new blooms on it. Everything looking great with the thyme. Now here are the Yukon Gold potatoes, and they have surpassed in size the Kennebec. They are just enormous in height. Let me show you how big these guys are. Just huge. You can see one of my cabbages beside of it, and it just kind of dwarfs the cabbage. And those are pretty large cabbage plants right now. So just massive plants. Hopefully they have potatoes as big as what they are looking like. And I'm getting ready to work on the carrot beds again. We've got carrots in there that are all up, but I'm actually trying to make it a little bit wider so that way I can get some more carrots planted in here. Anyway, we are out of time on this video, so like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for notices on new videos as they come out, and we shall see you in the next one.